Hey everybody, I wanted to go over this week's assignments because this week is our first essay assignment and I thought it would be helpful to have a live version of me talking about the assignment. And I'm going to talk about a few other things in the assignment. So I'm going to share my screen and we will talk about what's going on this week. So one of the first things you have is another exercise from the textbook. We'll be doing this pretty much every week. Each week we'll look at what the chapter is talking about, and then you'll have a very similar exercise. This one is very similar to the one last week, only what you have to include besides talking about the issue, conclusion of reasons, now you have to add a brief analysis of that. And you can look at passage 2 as a sample. This one is, which one is this on? Oh, this is on government spending in healthcare. And so you want to talk about the issue, the conclusion, the reasons, write a paragraph sort of explaining whether or not the argument is sound. And I can tell you right now, there's a lot of holes that you can poke in that argument, and you want to use the analysis based on, pick out keywords and phrases in that passage that are unclear and then explain why they are unclear. So that is the exercise. Then as usual, you have a discussion. To do the discussion, there's a link to a short video about how we respond to images. And then I give you another link to some images on the Ferguson riots. And then for the discussion, you want to read that carefully. Remember to post your discussion by Thursday, your initial response, and then do your peer responses by Sunday. You can do them sooner. So the thing I really want to talk about is our first essay assignment, which is about images. So I'm going to click on it and go over it for a minute. So we're going to be talking about the power of images. For this essay, you can pick any image that you want to analyze for your essay. You want to look closely at the image, make it a recent image in the past 5 years or so. And then you want to analyze what the impact of the photo has been and what the message of the photo has been. There's an extra credit opportunity here for 10 points. If you go to the Writing Center, use the Writing Center. You can make an online appointment, so you don't have to go in person. And then you have to show proof. They give you something to show that you went, but you can get up to 10 points if you use the Writing Center. If you do use the Writing Center, you need a couple of days for the online appointment, so you can go online and book that. I have links in the resources to the Writing Center, something you can think about, but you also always want to show them this assignment so that the tutor knows what the instructor is asking you to do. And then one of the things I want to talk about that sometimes students misunderstand with this assignment is you want your focus to stay on the image. And for example, sometimes students want to write about climate change, so they'll pick a really, they'll pick a famous picture of like a polar bear on the iceberg, and then they'll spend the whole essay talking about climate change instead of the image. So you want to keep the focus primarily on the image. You can certainly talk about its impact and say, this shows the impact of climate change, right? So here's, with keeping your analysis on the image, what you want to say is, here's some things to think about. You don't have to answer all of these questions, but you certainly want to look at what's going on. So obviously what's happening in the image, who is in it. If there are people, you may pick an image that doesn't have people. What are the people doing? Why are they doing it? Are they holding anything? Who is in the background? If there's no people in the image, what are other important aspects? Colors, shapes, buildings, animals, whatever's in that image. You want to look at that analyze it, and then talk about its message and its impact. And it's only a 2-page essay. So sometimes students forget the required elements, so I want to go over that. So a minimum of 2 pages of writing. So if you have 2 full pages, then your, and say you went a sentence or 2 onto the 3rd page, then your works cited page would be the 4th page. You do need a works cited page because you need to cite the image. To learn how to cite a photograph, you can go to the website on the Purdue OWL and it shows you how to cite a photograph if you don't know how. So, in your introduction, give some context about the image, engage your reader's attention, use one of the techniques we talked about in class. At the end of your introduction, you'll have 1 sentence that states the message of the image. So here's a sample thesis. There was a famous photograph of a little boy that was a Syrian refugee that died. So this would be a sample thesis for that. The photograph of the two-year-old Syrian refugee who lay dead on the beach brought attention to the plight of refugees, not just Syrian refugees, but refugees around the world. Then the supporting paragraphs of the essay need to analyze the elements of that image and how those elements support the thesis. You obviously need a conclusion, you need MLA format, margins, spacing, font, all of that. Academic voice, so you want to make sure that you don't use I or you or we. Instead of saying we need to understand, say society should understand or Americans should understand. Don't say you in the essay and certainly don't say I. So then I also think it's important, every essay and almost all assignments I give have a grading rubric attached. So it's really important to look at where the points are assigned. That way there's no confusion, right? So for this one, you get 10 points if your thesis is the last sentence, that it's clear and it follows the guidelines that I've already given. You have an introduction that has your topic, grabs the reader's attention, uses one of the topics we used in class. And then I've got focus and organization, paragraph development. If you have a paragraph that's 2 sentences is not a paragraph, so that would fall under paragraph development. MLA format, you've got your MLA guidelines, you've got your margins, your spacing, your works cited page, you've used the quoted material correctly. That's up to 20 points. A few little mistakes in MLA formatting, it's not going to be an issue at all. If your paper clearly makes no effort to be formatted in MLA, then that could result in a significant deduction. Language, this is where you don't want to have slang. You want to use the elements of academic voice that I put in the lecture. Don't have contractions in your essay. Avoid contractions. Avoid I, you, we. Read that lecture on academic voice. Sentence mechanics. So this is grammar. So, and you can lose up to 20 points here. So, if you have a comma splice once or twice in your essay, that's not a big deal. If you have a problem with comma splices or you have a problem with run-ons and it's throughout the entire essay, then that will have an impact on your grade. So that's something you want to keep track of. That's also something the Writing Center can help with. If you take it in and you say, hey, I know I've got a problem with comma splices. Can you go through this and help me identify them? The Writing Center does not fix your essay. They work with you to help you find your comma splices or whatever else. If you say, hey, my teacher says that, my thesis statements aren't very clear. Can you help me construct a thesis? So when you do use the Writing Center, be clear about what you want help with. I think the appointments are only about 30 minutes. So sometimes you don't have time to cover every single issue in the essay. So you want to talk about what's most important. Okay, so those are the assignments for this week. You have 2 weeks, my dog's barking. You have 2 weeks to work on the essay. It's not due till not this Sunday, but next Sunday. I always give a minimum of 2 weeks. Later, when we get to the research paper, I give even longer for that. So let me know if you have any questions. The 2 weeks comes fast. I do not recommend waiting till the last minute, especially if you're going to use the Writing Center. You need time to get your draft done and get that in. So let me know if I can help or if you have any questions, and I will talk to you later.